Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LocoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Laurin Conlon, owner of Team LocoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend, you know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com.
Welcome back to the boob tube.
We're not talking about boobs this time.
I
guess we can still call it boob tube.
I had to use that intro.
We're going to continue for this. The theme of this week is boob tube. Yes. So, although this is certainly not about that.
No. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Probably guessed from the title.
Sorry to disappoint, but we actually have a really cool topic, and we're so funny with our title. We thought we were really catchy. But why do we ask so many questions? But really.
Yeah.
We do ask a lot of questions, whether it's on the initial intake form with clients or it's our weekly check-ins. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to kind of go over that process as to why we ask the questions that we ask.
Yeah.
And like, what does this all mean? Like, we don't just want people to like write this stuff down for no reason. Like, there is a purpose behind all of these questions. So we'll start with the intake form. So this is, for all intents and purposes, unless we know somebody, this is our first contact with them. Really
ever. Yeah.
Ever. Even if it's an old client who we've worked with before, if they've been not working with us for a while.
Yeah, there's information we still need from them.
This is still like, okay, sure, I know how you've responded in the past, but like, what have you been doing? Because we have a lot of clients do that. You know, they work with us for a certain period of time, they go do stuff on their own, and then they want to come back. Mm-hmm. But like, let's say they've been gone for 6 months, a year. Things are very different. I might know your history, but I don't know.
I know what we did together.
What you've been doing. But for most people, this is going to be the first contact that we have. So we need to know all of these things. You know, what are you currently doing? When is the last time you dieted? Like, what does your cardio look like? What are you eating roughly on a daily basis? What are your short and long-term goals?
Yeah. What's been going on in your life? Are you stressed? Any major changes? You know,
digestion. What's your sleep look like? Have you had any kind of disordered eating in the past?
Weight trends, or have you been on plan, or kind of doing whatever?
Yeah, and these are all incredibly important because again, this is our first introduction to somebody, and based on the the combination of their history along with what they've been doing with their goals is ultimately what we will use to create the plan.
Yeah, because there's I would say it gives us a lot of information to make the best call for that client, because a common situation a lot of people get themselves stuck in is if they've been dieting for like a long time, or chronic over dieting or yo-yo dieting, where they're pretty much run into the ground at this point with the amount of calories they're eating. A lot of people come to us, under eating, or some people come to us not really having any idea of what to do next.
Mm-hmm. Or even what to do. They're like, I don't really know where to start. We've been able to expand our coaching methods and the team so that, we have a lot of people who come to us now who are just like, hey, I've never tracked before, or I don't even really know like what to do next, or really where to start, but like, here's kind of what I've been doing. Because we ask that, we say, hey, for the past week, if you're tracking macros, what do they look like? And if you don't track macros or don't know how to, can you give us a sample of like what you've been eating?
Yeah.
And that gives us an idea, at least to start. And then again, this is where we're going to see, okay, all this information comes together, and then we get on a call with somebody, and then we talk through those goals, because the short and long-term goals are really, really important for us to know, because they give us insight into, okay, is this, going to be realistic in this timeline? Is this good for, conducive for your actual current body metabolism?
Is what you're doing now appropriate for what you want to be doing 3, 6 months, a year from now? Is that even what is appropriate at the moment, based on your dieting history and what you're doing or what you're not doing?
Yeah. Like an example.
Yeah.
So if I fill out the questionnaire, and I talk about, okay, I've been off and on dieting for the past 5 years. Nothing's working right now. Here's a sample day what I'm eating, which is really low. On the weekends, I happen to go off track, and then I want to lose 30 pounds. So you read this, and then you get all this information, and we get on a call, and what would you tell me?
Well, if you're under eating, that's an issue too. More often than not, people need to eat more. But also we need to look at your eating habits as a whole. We have to get that consistent first before we really make a judgment call as to whether or not we should, continue doing what we're doing now with your diet, or if we need to work your food up before we actually enter a dieting phase again. A lot of people spend too long in a dieting phase where they're not seeing any more changes, and oftentimes a lot of these people need to take a step back from dieting in order to make more steps forward.
For sure. And even just develop the habits to be consistent. If somebody is talking about, I'm always yo-yo dieting, well, they don't really have good habits. They're good for a few weeks, but that doesn't mean anything.
That's not something that's sustainable. Yeah. And a lot of the time, just getting a client consistent at the start with their diet and their training and everything, having that data, having similar days back to back, a lot of the time that can show us a really good change. I've had plenty of clients where the first few weeks I don't have to change anything just because they're consistent with their targets and they're eating more than they thought they were before, and we're still seeing the changes that we want. The problem was before that they were up and down and not really knowing what to do with their diet.
And that is a huge issue, but it's so common. It is so common for people to eat very little for a few days, and then the weekend comes around or something comes up, and then they eat a lot, and then because they ate a lot they might feel bad, and then they go, okay, well, I don't want to eat more, and then they might actually be hungry because they just ate so much. So then the next few days they're kind of low again, and then they have this high thing again, and these days don't really balance each other out, and it's really, really unique how our bodies respond to consistency. It is so boring. I get it. And it doesn't mean it has to be 100% perfect to the T every single day. But if you're having these rapid fluctuations, if you're eating 1,000 calories one day, then you're eating 2,500 the next, your body's gonna be like, what the fuck?
What do you want from me?
What are we doing here, man?
Yeah, you're obviously not gonna move any kind of direction. No. Especially since we don't have solid goals set out for your day-to-day and your weeks. So, another common issue people are in is, maybe they have a super long dieting history and they, kind of get stuck in that pattern of, going in dieting and out of dieting, yo-yo dieting in general, or hopping on the next fad diet, and they never really learn anything.
Refer to our other podcasts. There's plenty of those. We gotta share the new one.
Okay. We're gonna take a pause real quick just to go over this thing I sent.
You guys, we can't not share this.
Okay, so
Jill sent this to me earlier, and I almost threw my computer out the window.
So pretty much, we're gonna quit.
We don't need to coach anymore. You guys should just get this book, and it'll solve all your problems.
The answers are pretty much out there. We've been bamboozled. We've been bamboozling all of you, actually, because Gwyneth Paltrow is just a gem.
She's an expert.
She's totally an expert. She's doing this thing right now called intuitive fasting, but it's a plan that pretty much involves combining intuitive eating, intermittent fasting, and ketotarian foods.
I'm still
just
not
a lot
sure.
of words.
A lot
being
of
thrown
words.
out here.
A lot of words.
And she knows what she's doing, obviously. So. It's just a lot of words, so it just sounds really in-depth, but it's really just...
it's
not
a bunch of nothing.
Yeah, it's a bunch of nothingness, basically.
When people hear that, they go, oh my god, ketotarian? I should be doing that, because Gwyneth Paltrow looks great, and, she seems healthy and all this stuff. And
the vagina candle?
I don't know anything about her, to be super honest.
I've heard stupid stuff.
She has a vagina candle?
She has a weird...
Oh, I've heard of this.
I think something called Goop. I'm not sure. I don't think that's a candle. I think that's something else.
No, I've definitely heard of the vagina candle, but it was also very expensive.
Oh, probably.
It wasn't.
This stuff is probably ridiculous.
I know, and I was like, all right, who wants to spend $80 on a candle that smells
people
like your...
who fall for ketotarian foods, probably.
True.
I don't understand.
Fasting. What?
Intuitive fasting. Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Oh my god. Well.
Sorry, we had to take that commercial break.
Just a short intermission to laugh and cry at the same time.
Yeah, simultaneously. So,
what was I talking about?
If you intake forms. Basically, we have a lot of questions on the intake form that are going to, give us a broader look into what you've been doing and your history and what you want to do moving forward.
Yeah.
Then the next step is getting on that call and really explaining to the client, okay, is this appropriate? Here are, here's what we should be doing in the short term, and here's what we should be doing to build upon the long-term goal.
Yeah, and we go over why something isn't working.
Exactly.
And why we need to take the steps that we do to get you to.
Yeah, we don't just say, hey, here's this plan, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah. Oh, here, eat more food. I'm not gonna
explain why.
There's a rhyme and a reason to why we're doing these things, and that's why we need all this background information. Is because if we don't consider anything, if we don't consider your dieting history, if we don't consider what you're currently intaking or your current activity level, we're just going to be blindly entering this dieting phase.
Yeah, we could just give you a diet plan.
Yeah.
But what use would that be? That would tell it.
It's not tailored to you.
No, that would be useful for a few weeks. I mean, that's not going to have no use, but it would be useful for a few weeks. And then if we don't know all these other things about you, then
it may not be helpful.
No, it might not be helpful. It could be, adding on to some other issues and compounding the issues that you've had previously.
Yeah.
It could be working against your goals. So that's why it's so important to know a lot of information up front. And then that just helps the coaching process too, because the starting program is just that. It's a starting program. It's not magic. It's not something that honestly.
It's not something that's static.
No.
It's bound to
might change every week or,
Yeah.
Relatively speaking. It's not like we're doing a complete overhaul to somebody's program every week, but the amount of food can change, our recommendations for
the method can change just based on the client in general. So many clients are starting off in different positions.
Yes.
So learning the client and having that information to start with makes it better for us to put a plan together that's suitable for you.
Yeah. If we had a client who reached out and said, hey, I don't track, I haven't been tracking.
I'm not going to instantly, say, hey, I expect you to hit
here's your 3 numbers. They're like, excuse me? What is that?
These are just numbers pulled out of nowhere.
No, we're going to start with something else. We're going to start with a few habits. We're going to do some education about it. And then, then we might start tracking a few weeks later, usually protein.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start at least just tracking protein, right? And then we move into it. And then we could easily move out of it too. And then also sometimes you can start something and then that might not be working because a client is like, I'm thinking of somebody right now, he was in a spot where he's like, yeah, I have kind of a lot of time right now. This is great. I can relate here. And then literally within 2 weeks of us starting, a lot of things changed with his work, and now he has very, very little time, and things are very chaotic, and they're very busy, and they're always changing. So I'm like, all right, well, we can change the methods. We don't need to stick with what we were starting with.
What works for one client isn't going to work for another, and this goes for even intake. Every client is going to need a different amount of food. Every client's going to need a different approach. One person sitting at 150 pounds may need a totally different intake than another person sitting at 150 pounds.
Yeah.
So it even goes, as simple as that, where one diet isn't going to work for someone, for 2 people the same way.
But ketotarian does. Oh. So you should have corrected yourself.
Oh, damn it. Fuck.
So after we've gone through, so you've sent in the application, we've gone through the call, then on our weekly check-ins, we continue to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. So a few of the things that we like to ask about are, digestion. Of course, the protocol itself, what we're doing every week with the macros and cardio, if we have any of that, assigned strictly. We have, weigh-ins that we take, we have measurements. We look at fluid, our hours of sleep per night, any stressors that you have going on in your life, anything new, a lot of things to consider, and
they all go together.
Yeah,
and we don't just ask these questions for no reason. We ask them because if you, let's say, you normally drink a gallon of water, and then for the past 4 days you've drink half a gallon,
a liter or something.
Yeah, and then you are a few days out from your cycle if you're a woman, and then you are
maybe you're super stressed at work.
Yeah,
and then you got way less sleep.
And then you're like, oh, my digestion's been awful. Do I have something wrong with me? It's like, no. You didn't drink water. You're about to be on your cycle, and you're really stressed out. That is why. But if we hadn't have asked those other questions, we wouldn't have known.
There would be a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, or oh my God, what is wrong with your digestion? I don't know. And now there might be something that's off with your digestion, because if we can pinpoint that nothing else has changed, we can now go, okay, well maybe there is something here, and now let's look into this a little bit deeper. So the reason that we ask all this information up front is so that we can paint basically the entire picture, and then we can make the best recommendations from that. And if somebody's just saying hey, just send me your weight or how you're feeling, that is not going to be enough information. I don't think it's enough information for, you know, and again, everybody has a different place with what they need with coaching. So it's not as easy as saying like, yeah, just send me, you know, the macros you've been hitting. That's not how we coach. That works for some people. That's not how we coach.
There's a lot more, even, you know, mindset, you know, how you're feeling around meals, your hunger. Those I forgot to mention too.
We have even sections on, you know, like how's your relationship with food, you know, what are your biggest wins this week, your biggest barriers this week.
What you kind of struggled with. And those are things that tell us, you know, hey, we can work more on these other areas. Even if, you know, hey, things are moving in the right direction, you know, numbers wise with, you know, the scale, if that's your goal. There's a lot of other things that we could be looking at in that coaching process that are just as important to maintaining that progress.
Because oftentimes people will, and this, you know, I'm guilty of doing this too when I first started, you know, we just look at the goal that we're doing, right? But we need to be able to look at, okay, what are the habits that we're building while we're working towards this goal that will be conducive for everything else? So when we dial in things like somebody's sleep, like somebody's stress perception, like somebody's digestion, like somebody's now they have tools and the habits for the rest of their life to be like, all right, I can actually be a successful person in whatever I'm trying to do because I have these tools. And it wasn't just, oh, hey, here's this diet, follow it, and then you know, hope it works out.
And you know, fluctuations are a really good example for this kind of thing because so many things can impact why your weight spikes some weeks and maybe not in other weeks. And it's, if we were just to ask what your weight was and, you know, maybe how much cardio you're doing or what your macros were, and we see that your weight spiked, you know, a coach that doesn't know how to look at all that information may just be like, okay, you just have to do the work and you just have to eat less or you just have to do more. Instead of saying like, oh, well, you were on your cycle this week and you got like little sleep and maybe you weren't really keeping up with your water. You know, a lot of other things could be at play there that are, you know, really first on the list to check off before we instantly turn to, you know, the plan as a whole.
Exactly. Because oftentimes you can make a lot of progress with the same plan. Now, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to make adjustments every week, and that happens. But we're not going to do that without seeing all those other variables and seeing all that other data.
Yeah, especially seeing the weeks prior too. You know, if you've been consistently dropping, if you're someone who is, you know, pretty on point with, you know, everything day to day, and you have 1 week that's off, you know, maybe you were super stressed or you were traveling, odds are we're not going to change anything if we've been seeing some positive trends, you know, for weeks at that point. Especially if we notice for a fact that a lot of things were at play.
Yeah, so it's just about asking the right questions and, you know, opening that up to clients. They feel really, really comfortable to share, right? Because everything, like I said, is important.
Yeah.
You know, are you on your cycle? That's important to know.
Did you poop?
How are your bowel movements? Did you break up with your boyfriend? Like, did you have something really stressful happen at work? Like, did you not sleep all week? Like, these are things that we have to ask. And they all are really important to understand the bigger picture. And again, it's just a lot more than, oh, okay, like what are your targets? Like what do your pictures look like this week? Which is very, very important. Yeah. But what we like to do is really have a more, and this word gets like so butchered, but a holistic approach, because really like a multifaceted, multifactorial approach to coaching, starting from the intake form all the way to the every week check-ins, because we want to tailor the experience for clients. And we want to, again, give them these tools in order to be successful no matter what they're trying to do.
Yeah, there are plenty of clients who maybe before the coaching process, they could get really confused about why certain things happen. And, you know, now I have a lot of clients at a point where they're, you know, they see it for themselves and they're even mentioning like, hey, I know like this happened this week, but I really think it's just because like I was out traveling all week and my sleep was off and, you know, I really wasn't, you know, up with my water or, you know, my cycle. If they notice those things and they can stay objective with it, I know that they're learning something throughout the process. Because even when, you know, you're in it, like maybe you're on your period and your weight spikes, sometimes when you're in it, you could just be frustrated, but you really do know like why it's happening.
And well, if you pay attention to that and then you see those trends, and that again is where that small shift seems like, oh, why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because if all those things are working against you and, you know, you kind of have an off week, that might let you spiral to completely fall off the program if you didn't understand why things were off. So it's always important to understand like the reasons behind things. And sometimes, you know, there is just an intuitive feeling with things, you know, with clients, like, it's all right, I think we're going to drop again this week. You know, let's hold steady for the next few days. We'll just check in again and we'll see where you're at. Or, hey, I really think that this addition is going to be a good idea. I think your body's going to tolerate it fine. And they're like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, I really don't know. But based on the other things that you've done, I have a feeling you will. Yeah. But everything outside of like a few little exceptions, you should be able to explain. And that's why, again, the experience should be open enough and, you know, asking the right questions so that people do feel comfortable sharing that with you. Because if you're only getting half the picture, right, then if they just sent in their weights, like for that example that you used, you know, and they didn't say, I was traveling, I was on my cycle, I didn't really have any water, If they just said, oh, hey, my weight's up this week, you'd be like, whoa, well, there's 18 things it could be, so what is it? And then we can't make any changes because we don't actually know what is truly going on.
And something else is, you know, as we learn the client more and more, I have a few clients where I just know for a fact that they're just more sensitive to certain things than others.
For
you know, a few of my clients are really sensitive if they, you know, don't get enough sleep, or they're really sensitive if, you know, their water is like really low. So, you know, you can just tell from certain clients that some things just are going to happen to them a little bit more if something is off.
Yeah. Like some people have a rock solid stomach, and other people, they eat a few things that are off. Like they really struggle with that.
At me.
Yeah, I'm the water one. If I don't drink enough water, like.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of water too. Or
it's really sleep. Bad. I literally, sleep and water are really big for me.
I'm really in tune with like how tired I could be if I don't get enough. You know?
Yeah, and it just throws a lot of things off. And some people, they're honestly fine with it, you know. And now there's other physiological reasons to get sleep. That's a whole different topic, but you know, so we are big proponents of getting enough sleep for other reasons. But there are some people who can function on less sleep. Doesn't mean that that's actually necessarily healthy. But there are some people who don't sleep a lot, and then they can't function. That's me. And then there's some people who don't sleep a lot, even though it's not healthy, they can function. So it's kind of one of those things that you know, you have to really, like you said, understand the client, and then you can really dial things in a lot better. And that's why we, you know, going back to the intake form, we are in that initial call, like we're very upfront with people, and we don't have a crystal ball. We can't say exactly when things are going to happen or when they're not going to happen. But generally speaking, we like to be very upfront and very honest about stuff. Meaning, all right, you have this goal. This is going to take us probably a year, and here's what we're going to do in between that year. We're not just going to be like twiddling our thumbs for the year. We're going to be actively working on things, but this is not going to happen in 6 weeks. Right, and we don't sell that like pipe dream that's just fake. No, that's so not our style.
No. And it's just not worth it to sell that kind of thing, especially if, you know, it's pretty apparent that, like, you know, it's not realistic.
No, it's not realistic.
Sucks. You know, it would suck if, you know, I just imagining it like as a coach, like if you were to promise someone something in 6 weeks and like not deliver that, it's so apparent. So why would we ever?
Yeah, you'd feel terrible. But, you know, so part of asking the right questions initially, and then part of, you know, getting to know the client and really asking all those things during that process is to, you know, okay, we're keeping the long-term goals, you know, in the forefront of our mind, but we're taking these small steps actively that will make us more efficient and get us there faster. But faster is still probably slower than like. So if you want to make real meaningful changes, but honestly, I can say with full confidence that when people dedicate longer periods of time to something, that they actually come out of it having learned so much, having understood so many new things, and again, they can apply these skills
and
on their own.
You know, even more like competent to you know, handle that kind of stuff, even if, you know, they're not working with us.
Exactly.
You know, I've had plenty of, you know, lifestyle clients who are feeling confident enough to go off and, you know, hang out on their own for a little bit. Then they may come back, you know, just to touch base and, you know, go through things a little bit more. And then, you know, they try to go off on their own again. And it's really good as a challenge for them to see them like, hey, like take those tools and go off and implement them on their own.
The goal of a coach should be to educate clients, not just get them. You know, it's great to help somebody reach a goal, but if you haven't taught them anything along the way, that's, in my opinion, that's not coaching. That's just kind of just guiding someone there, right? Which again is fine, but we want to make long-standing changes to people and the industry as a whole. So in order to do that, we actually have to take things slower and actually educate people, which is less sexy, less glamorous. You know, we can lose people in that process. You know, it's not as clickbaity, you know, or whatever. But that is making real impacting changes. And like, especially for, you know, obviously competitors, it's a little bit different because things are cyclical and there's season.
Structured and planned out.
They need, you know, there's literal seasons. But for everybody else, really, you know, if you dedicate a certain amount of time, like you should be able to go to things on your own, and that's actually our goal. Like we love working with people. And there's some people though who, you know, they continue coaching because they want that accountability and they want to challenge themselves, and that's cool too. But it's not because we haven't taught them anything. It's because they want to continue to have accountability and continue to challenge themselves, and we can come up with new plans and new things to focus on. But they're fully competent and capable on their own. So the whole point again of coaching is to educate people and not like just, you know, baby them to the point where like you help them a little bit, but like you're always like in charge of it. You know, you want them to.
A lot of the time it's also talking clients like off the ledge when it comes to like the numbers too. You know, showing them like, hey, like just because some of these numbers may change sometimes, it doesn't mean that this is a failure or a negative thing or inherently positive. You know, you don't have to put so much emotion or weight into the numbers. You know, it really shows them to use it as data to just track over time. And then they're able to, you know, look at it a little bit more objectively themselves.
For sure. That, I mean, detaching from numbers is, again, another thing that we do and we really, really focus on because, and that's why I think having all those questions, you know, why do we have so many questions? It's really helpful to be able to point to that and say, okay, well, yeah, the numbers were different this week, up or down, but here's why, you know, like all these other things that were impacted here. And it's much easier instead of just like kind of shooting in the dark, like, oh, I think it could have been this. No, we have everything right in front of us and we're able to, now there's still some times where I'm like,
sometimes we do need to go a little bit more in depth.
What did this mean? Or is there another thing? Sometimes there are things, but the most common things that we have to address, we have in the update for a reason. And then if we really need to add something else, of course, we do that as well. But yeah, we do ask a lot of questions. We're aware of that. I know I've had some people who, you know, are like, oh, the application's so long, or that it's like, sorry, like we need to know all of this, and I'm not going to, you know, be able to give you good feedback, you know, or any of our coaches give you good feedback on the initial call if we don't have this. So we really need to know everything, and this is kind of like a taste of what check-ins are like. Like they are, you know, you gotta spend a little bit of time on it, but that is getting the most out of it.
Relevant information, and you know, it's not like
asking your favorite color. I mean,
it's not like you don't have to write like a paragraph each week, but at least like having that information down, like nothing has to change there. You could say, hey, I'm all good here, but at least we know that, so we can, you know, have that crossed off our list instead of us having to wonder and kind of go back and forth a little bit more, you know, digging a little bit deeper. We have all that information out in front of us already.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of our check-in sheet, not gonna lie. We're like, hair flip. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we kind of touched on all of that.
Yeah, I mean, even going with Paltrow, you know?
Yeah, we worked that in. That was a really good commercial.
We did not do that seamlessly at all.
We never do anything seamlessly.
And that's coming from the creative director.
I am not surprised that we totally botched that, but that's how my brain works, and I was just reminded of it.
Julian, the creative director.
Still can't call up the name.
I have to approve. Oh yeah. Well, we're thinking of it. I have a few options, but
yeah. So we
really
are still
solid yet.
Situational anonymous questions. If you want to submit any of those.
What's the sitch?
Maybe.
That's possible.
Yeah. Right. Okay, that's kind of something. Maybe that's better than anonymous questions.
Anonymous question box. Go.
So if you do want to submit any questions, whether it's regards to mental health situations, relationships, nutrition, training, coaching.
The complaint bucket.
Yeah, the complaint bucket. Just kidding.
On.
That's only me and Jill's complaint bucket, and I just throw it out.
HR.
I am the HR.
Yeah, you're HR. Creative director has nothing to do with that. Creative director is talking in third person, so I'm gonna shut up.
I'm like, Jill, I gotta get this out, okay? God damn. I already have terrible outros, and you're just making it worse.
Well, yeah, of course.
So if you want to submit any of those questions anonymously, as always, you can do that with the link in the show notes. It's also linked in our Instagram bios. And then if you want to check out our website, teamlocofit.com, you can apply for coaching. Check out the awesome application we were talking about. You can listen to the other podcasts and also check out the articles that we write every week. So
if you have any questions for us.
Yes.
Anonymous question box.
Anonymous question box.
There you go.
All right. Good. Wow. Good save. Pause that. All right, guys. Bye. Fucking idiot.